We're about to meet a young man who retired at the age of 30, not because he made millions, but because he cut back in some radical ways. He's now become a personal finance guru.
And my coworkers were a little surprised. They're like, "What do you mean retire? Like, you mean you're going to take a month off until you run out of money?" And I was like, "Nope, we're done. We have enough money for life."
His family completely debt-free. They live and live well on about $25,000 a year.
Comfort is expensive. Slight discomfort is cheap. Comfort is expensive. Slight discomfort is cheap.
On his popular blog, Mr. Money Mustache, named after a trademark handlebar mustache he used to sport. His followers, called Mustachians, all post on the site, eager to achieve what he calls financial freedom.
They can strip all this down and suddenly go from like a modest, struggling lifestyle to one with a lot of surplus.
So how'd he do it? He and his wife spent their 20s as software engineers, making about $134,000 together. But they wanted to make a change and start a family.
It was more thinking about freedoms. We thought, well, it would be nice to get through this and be able to step back and focus on kids.
By the age of 30, Pete and his wife had quite the nest egg. What did you guys have in the bank?
At the time of retirement, we had it split up with about $600,000 of investments and then a house that was paid off.
How did Pete manage to succeed where so many of us fail? First, aim to save half of your take-home pay.
The more you get saved up, the less you need to protect yourself, which means your savings grow even faster.
And when it comes to your house, Mr. Money Mustache says, don't buy into the moving on up hype.
Now in this smaller house, I'm happier than I've ever been in life.
You're happier than you've ever been in life.
Much happier.
Carl, 41, is one of Pete's devoted followers. Now, thanks to Mr. Money Mustache, he is on the verge of retirement.
How did you change your life?
We had a house that was about 5,000 square feet. It was a bit ridiculous, I don't know. So the first thing I said is we have to downsize.
So how can you retire early? For starters, forget financing that fancy car. His is 10 years old.
Luxury 2005 Scion XA, a 40 mile per gallon wonder, and yeah, it's probably worth about $6,000 today. You could not possibly have a nicer car than this.
When it comes to fancy coffee, Mr. Money Mustache says, make your own. Check this out. Take me. There I am getting my beloved latte on the way to work. That's about $4.50 every day. Over a year, 260 lattes, $1,170. Over a decade, $11,700.
But it gets a lot worse because you could be investing that money. Right, cheers.
What about that gym membership?
Now we're getting a tour of the fancy outdoor gym.
His gym may be basic, but he reckons mine cost me $6,000 per decade.
This is the weight room. You don't need like special pedaling machines or stuff that goes like this or stuff that's like, oh, kid and stuff.
But none of this means you are a slave to the dollar. Pete doesn't clip coupons and splurges at an organic grocery store.
3 for $1? That's ridiculously good. Let's get 3. If you ever throw out food, then you're doing something wrong.
His frugal yet fabulous way of life.
You just filled your bags, organic food, healthy food, some luxuries, cheese and chocolate for just $50.
Yeah, it's not bad.
From the checkout line to online, Pete practices the Mustachian philosophy.
Challenge yourself, become stronger, become more efficient at everything you do, and money is just one of those things. And work on your health and your wealth and your knowledge. And just a byproduct of that is that you get a lot richer.
It sounds like a life philosophy, not necessarily just a financial philosophy.
Oh yeah, you're definitely right.
A richer life lived on your own terms.
The Federal Reserve found that the average American saves only about 3% of their income, and nearly half of U.S. households cannot come up with $400 to cover an emergency without borrowing or selling something. Tonight, we introduce you to a family who took the power of saving to a whole new level. This working couple in Boston had a comfortable, upper-middle-class lifestyle and then made a drastic change. They scrimped and saved so much money that in their early 30s, they were able to stop working altogether. NewsHour Weekend's Christopher Booker reports.
Yes, we try to get outside every day, and we really do. I would say with the rare exceptions of really heavy rain.
34-year-old Elizabeth Willard Thames, her husband Nate, and their 2 daughters live in a home on 66 acres in central Vermont. And spending a weekday hiking around is a vast departure from the 9-to-5 cubicle jobs that Thames and her husband had just 3 years ago.
This is where we're happiest. This is where we're most at peace. And so we thought, instead of running away to the woods every weekend, we really should just move to the woods.
Just live in the woods.
Be there all the time.
Thames is the author of a new book called Meet the Frugal Woods. It takes its name from the blog she's been writing since the spring of 2014.
We were sitting in a coffee shop, and I was looking at our reflection in the mirror of this coffee shop, and I was wearing, I think, like $200 leather boots, and my husband is wearing like this hipster outfit, and I was thinking, who are these people? How have we gotten to this place where we used to live in a basement apartment and really sort of scrimp by, but we'd been able to buy a home, and we'd reached that sort of very pivotal financial goal, and then we just coasted.
That day, they decided to radically change their lives and live as cheaply as possible. The idea was to save as much money as they could in order to quit their jobs, leave the Boston area, and move to the woods.
My husband asked me, when are you happiest? And I said, I'm happiest when I'm out hiking in the woods. Obviously, that's when I'm happiest. And he said, then why are we living in the city? Why are we spending all this money on this lifestyle that is not really bringing us that high level of contentment? I've always been a frugal person, but going from 42 to 70, 80%, that is a question of holistic transformation. So it's not just, well, I'm going to sort of cut out one restaurant meal a week. We're not eating out at all ever again.
Saying no to restaurants was just the beginning. They pledged to buy no new clothes, they learned to cut each other's hair, and for items they haven't been willing to give up, like seltzer water, they found workarounds.
And I went on the internet and I was like, has anyone attached a big tank to a seltzer machine? And it turned out that people had. And so
the Thames found that a 20-pound CO2 tank could produce a liter of seltzer for less than a penny.
I'm not a certified financial planner, but I think I have a unique and very personal approach to how to manage money.
Unique and personal approaches to managing money are not hard to find on the internet. Frugal Woods is part of a robust and varied online community advocating spending less to retire early.
All of our daughter's things are used. So the furniture, the clothing, the shoes, the coats, the boots, it's all used. Do we have peanut butter in there?
Though he says he doesn't have to, Nate chooses to continue to work for a political nonprofit from their home in Vermont. Although Elizabeth has left her fundraising job, she prefers to say she is financially independent as opposed to retired. In fact, she earns money from her blog and now her book, too.
Retirement evokes this idea of sort of doing nothing and laying around on a beach. But my husband and I are both people who love doing and love working and love having projects. We do work that we're passionate about.
That was what we decided was enough to live on forever.
On his blog, Aidney espouses the so-called 4% rule. If you salt away and invest in stocks 25 times your annual spending, you can then withdraw 4% of your savings each year of retirement.
And it's going to fluctuate just because the stock market fluctuates. But if you're just taking a small amount each year, you don't care at all about that. Like a stock market crashes, you're still taking your little 4%.
Don't spend money on things you don't actually need, he says. And don't drive so much.
That's my biggest winning secret to a wealthy life, is just get out of the car a little bit. Driving is way, way more expensive than what most people think. Most people think about gasoline as their cost of driving. Really, it's about 5 times higher than that.
Aidney also saves so much because he's a do-it-yourselfer. Take his house.
The one that we live in now, I built almost entirely from scratch.
So you put in your own plumbing?
Yeah.
You did your own flooring?
Yep, that's part of a house.
38-year-old retired teacher Ellen Robinson's trick? Don't buy anything new.
This is from the loft, and you can buy that for closer to $8 instead of buying it for $50.
As for the furniture in the home Ellen shares with husband Michael and their 2 young children,
pretty much all hand-me-downs. The couch was a hand-me-down from my grandparents. These pieces of furniture right here were hand-me-downs when the office that Michael worked in had to downsize. The lamp, a friend from my work gave that to me.
One common feature of the FIRE movement credit cards used strategically.
So we get 6% on groceries if we use this card, so 6% back, 3% on gas, and 3% on department stores.
You feel at all deprived?
No, I do not feel deprived. Do you feel deprived?
No, we don't. Yeah.
I am not above the temptation. If I walk into the mall, I am just as drawn to all those things as anybody else. But I just have a dialogue in my head about the decision to very intentionally not buy those things, and also just very intentionally not going to the mall.
So the median income is $60,000 or whatever in the US for a household. And what's the best-selling vehicle? A $30,000 plus F-150 pickup truck. That's the problem. We all scale everything up just a bit more than we can afford. So the median income is $60,000 or whatever in the US for a household. And what's the best-selling vehicle? A $30,000 plus F-150 pickup truck. That's the problem. We all scale everything up just a bit more than we can afford.
And even for debt-free higher earners like Mark and Sina Ebersol, becoming financially independent began as a heavy lift.
It was pretty hard at the beginning for me, paring it down and saving. That was a very foreign concept for me.
Did you like it?
No. It felt a little bit like, are we wasting away our good years?
10 years later, the former dance instructor is grateful that she and Mark, an engineer, work only when they want to.
It's not necessarily about not working, but it's the freedom that comes with not having to work. Right now, my kids are 4 and 2, and I'm home with them all day, every day.
As for Mr. Money Mustache himself,
the goal is just to live a happy existence and maybe leave the world better than when you started. So I've done small businesses like carpentry, and a lot of dad work has been my biggest occupation.
This is economics correspondent Paul Salman at Mr. Money Mustache headquarters in Longmont, Colorado.